And what is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players Podcast, and more specifically, MLS History Retold. That's right, we're back with more stories from the 2006 season, specifically Alecko Eskandarian scoring against the newly named New York Red Bull and hitting a celebration fit for the oldest rivalry in MLS. That is followed by more incredible stories from Brian Ching in the Houston Orange as we look back on his bicycle kick goal versus DC United in the dying moments of the game. My name is Andrew, joined by my good buddy Connor, and this is MLS History Retold. Now, Connor's going to put some cool music in, and we're going to come in. I'm going to say, it has been way too long. Connor, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. I
Good.
am doing well. You know what? I know you mentioned the music. I think it's more fun when you ad lib the music for us. I could put your version of the music in there as the intro.
I am really good at music, so it does make sense. Um, by the time this goes out, this will be 2 weeks basically of a break that we've taken here. Um, Kind of crazy to be honest with you. We haven't taken a 2 week break all season. We've been going nonstop if you think about it.
Is it actually 2 weeks? Wow.
Yeah, our last episode was August 23rd. This is going to go out on the 6th. Because we took the whole week off when school started and busy season was ending. And now we got a little bit behind because I had a tournament this weekend. I got a tournament next weekend too. So busy,
We should
busy. But then
stop having tournaments.
this
What are
is the
you, the
last
League
one,
Cup?
hopefully. This is the last one until the NCAA tournament. Am I right?
Whoa, big time.
Um, oh man, it's good to be back. I miss talking about this stuff. I've been editing some old MLS histories for like TikTok and stuff. I'm like, man, I really want to dive back into this.
Here's
So
your chance. And aren't you
I
lucky? You get to talk about your favorite team.
I'm not super happy about it, but I'm more happy to talk about it than I am to see you. So, positives, right?
You know what I'm really happy to talk about again?
I don't know.
Scarf of the week.
Nice. I thought you're gonna try and transition into your own thing, and I was like, we're not there yet. We're not
No, no,
there
no. I
yet.
know, I know. I'm not gonna skip Scarf of
I
the
was like,
week.
it's been 2 weeks. Have we forgotten what we do here? That's great. Connor, why don't you tell me what you're rocking, my man?
Well, this is at least the second week running, and not to spoil things, but I may or may not have the same scarf next week again too. But we're bringing out the Houston scarf. I only have one Houston scarf, unfortunately, as of right now.
Get him,
So
Dynamo fans.
as I keep talking about Houston, this is going to be the Houston scarf.
All righty. So my scarf represents how I currently feel about the New York Red Bulls, who are 4 points out of the playoffs with 8 or 7 to go.
I
Um,
can't believe you're 4 points out of the playoffs. That's disgusting.
it's my New York is red scarf, but it is made of the cheapest material you can find because that's how I feel. I feel like I've been cheated. I feel like the team is treating me like a cheap scarf, like nobody wants. However, I still support them, and New York is red, as it will
That's
be this weekend.
that's how Red Bull treats their transfer policy. Cheapest the cheapest material they can find.
Stop. Um, yeah, after this, we're gonna do a whole bunch more on end of season predictions, predicting the last couple of games for each team, who stays, who goes, end of season awards. I mean, we got so much on the docket to do. So before we even get in this, make sure you're subscribed so you can listen to all of that when it comes out. I'm super excited to dive into it. Are you?
I am stoked.
Yeah. He's even more stoked for when we're about to sit down and make this whole schedule after this.
Oh boy.
Yeah. All right. I think I get this started. Is that right?
You do, indeed.
I always do, don't I?
It has been for a little while, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We have talked at length about the Red Bull or MetroStar and DC United rivalry. If you don't know about it, go back and listen to a bunch of our episodes. These two teams were one of the first rivals in MLS due to location and being one of the first teams to play against each other in close proximity when we only had 10 teams. Um, and from the start, they hated each other. The games got chippy, tempers flared, and each match brings something crazy to the front of the viewers' minds. My friends at the New York Red Bull discussion group on Facebook even have an entire week dedicated to DC Hate Week. Just to remind some of the newer fans, while there may be some new teams that are annoying or recently caused some bad blood, nobody is more hated by the OG 96ers than DC United. They hate the team, they hate the players, they hate everything about them. So much so that there are songs dedicated to DC hatred, and Connor loves singing. I was hoping he'd jump in there, but it sounds like he's
I only
nervous.
know like 5 words to that one song, and
And
then
you
that's
can't
it.
say three of them.
Well, I don't even know what the 3 words I can't say are. You always just say, "Oh, I can't say those words.
You're
Those
not
are bad
allowed
words."
to. It's blocked off.
I'm gonna go find the song now.
I hope you can. Um, so DC United knew this really well. Being the first MLS dynasty in existence, they had a target on their back, none bigger than the ones painted by their I-95 rivals without a single piece of silverware to this point. But that didn't stop the players, including one Alecko Eskandarian, from stirring the pot a little bit every time they played. On April 22nd, 2006, DC United faced off against the New York Red Bulls for the first time since being renamed from the Metro Stars. The match took place at RFK Stadium in front of a roaring crowd of 8,000 fans that would rival even the worst days at present Red Bull Arena. The game would start off with its usual feisty nature, including Alecko Eskandarian himself picking up the first yellow card of the game. While this all but ruled out a celebration involving the removal of his own shirt, he had something a little bit clever up his sleeve if he got. And in the 41st minute, he got his chance to shine. The American Pele, Freddie Adu, cuts down the line and crosses a ball with his left foot into the box all along the ground. Marvell Wynn, the consensus number 4 best number 1 overall draft pick in MLS history, tries to clear the ball, but his half-hearted attempt fails to. His half-hearted attempt falls to the feet of one Alecko Eskandarian. With his left foot, he makes no mistake, and a one-timed effort is blasted into the bottom corner. This puts DC up 1-0 and gives him the moment he was waiting for. Alecko probably sprinted a total of 75 yards to get to his bench on the other side of the field, pushing players out of his way as he passed them. Once he got there, a member of the coaching staff or the bench tossed him a can of, you guessed it, Red Bull, to which he propped open, took a quick sip, and quickly spit back out onto the ground before throwing the can to the ground and running back to his spot on the pitch. A small moment in time that meant so much. It encapsulated all that this rivalry was, the feeling of many teams and players to the Red Bull buyout and all the big names they were about to bring in, all just for them to get absolutely smashed. And Alecko knew it. He took his moment, spit it on the ground, and said, "He doesn't matter if you're named after an energy drink. We're still going to take it to you just the same." Now, to those who think that this would have fired up Red Bull to maybe get back into the match, come on. Who are we talking about? Alecko would add a second goal to his game day tally in the second half to make it 2-0, followed by a 71st minute Facundo Erpin goal to triple the lead. Djorkaeff would get one back for the Red Bulls in the 86th minute with 4 to play, just to see Jamil Walker restore the lead to 3 2 minutes later. The match would end 4-1, and on a night that most Red Bull supporters would like to forget, came the birth of one of the most memorable celebrations in the club's and league's history, taking a shot at the sellout for the club and the league that was Red Bull Global. Is there anything more Metro than that? I think not.
Is there an equivalent today or in recent years of like another team from the league that like, I don't want to say sold out, but like did something similar, just like picked up a big brand to get a bunch of money? Like I know there's NYC, but they kind of started that way. It wasn't like they started out as a team and then picked up this big sponsorship. Was there anything else similar, or is this specific to just Metro?
I think City Football Group is probably the closest example of that, where they go out and buy a team in basically every league.
Yeah.
But I can't. I mean, and again, Red Bull's close, but um, I don't know if I you could maybe say Newcastle because they took a massive investment, but it's not really a brand, is it? It's just the entire operating fund for an entire country. So
Yeah. I mean, I think teams outside of MLS, it's probably just to your point, anybody that's in these like giant systems at this point. Like even Strasbourg, who's now like in the Chelsea system and benefits hugely from that, gets a bunch of loan players and stuff. So I mean, yeah, that's probably the equivalent. It's just everybody's kind of modeling after that Red Bull system. I mean, I don't know if someone was there before Red Bull or if they were the pioneers of that and did it first, just setting up teams everywhere around the world.
but we don't even get like we don't even benefit from it.
No, you
We
don't
get
benefit from it.
shafted from it. I'm not going down this hole, not tonight.
No, no, no. That's a whole long conversation.
Which we've had already. Go check it out. It's on our site somewhere.
It's somewhere in there. It's probably been there a number of times.
How you gonna transition into this
I
one?
don't. I mean, I don't really have a seamless one, but the only one I was thinking of was, um, Red Bull really bailed out the Metro Stars there, but you know who bailed out Houston again?
Nice.
This man Brian Ching.
Nice.
So if you can remember back to our last MLS history retold episode, we covered everything Houston Dynamo in the 2006 season. But if you didn't, here's a quick recap. So the Houston Dynamo were born this season after the formerly known San Jose Earthquakes were moved to Houston in a relocation of the team. Despite the move, the now Houston Dynamo were able to maintain almost all of the former San Jose players who had won the Supporter Shield the season prior. So let's jump to the game. Let's jump to game 30 during the 2006 season. And while it was mathematically impossible for the players to win back-to-back supporter shields, they were still in prime position to make the playoffs and challenge for the cup. The top 4 teams from each conference would make it to the playoffs, meaning that if Houston won this game, game 30, they would clinch a playoff spot in its first ever season. However, it was not going to be easy as they were matched up against that same team we were just talking about, DC United, who at the time were top of the supporter shield. The Houston squad would be filled with household MLS names such as De Rosario, Brad Davis, and of course, Brian Ching, the man we spoke about last episode who scored 4 goals in the first ever Houston Dynamo game. For DC, they'd be going up against MLS legend Jaime Moreno and soon to be announced 2006 MLS MVP Christian Gomez. While DC was firmly in the playoffs, they still had the Shield to play for, so this was not going to be an easy matchup for Houston. And the first half definitely showed that, with it ending in a defensive battle resulting in a 0-0 scoreline. A draw was not going to do it. They needed to win to clinch their playoff spot, so they needed to make something happen in the second half. The first 40 minutes of the second half go by, and nothing has changed. It's still stalemate at 0-0. While Houston was still likely to make the playoffs, even with a loss in this game, what better chance to clinch your first ever playoff berth in front of your home crowd? And there is only one Houston man who can make that happen for them. And if you listen to last history's episode, you know who I'm talking about. In the 86th minute, Brad Davis hits a cross into the box from the left flank, which is headed high and straight up into the air by substitute Paul Dalglish. The floating ball near the edge of the box finds a completely wide open Brian Ching, who is slightly ahead of the floating ball. If he takes it down, there are 4 DC players who could swarm him immediately and kill the space he's found. So there's only one option for him to do at this point. Ching lines it up and bikes it past the diving Troy Perkins into the bottom left corner to win the game for Houston and clinch the playoffs for them. The goal sent the announcers and the Houston crowd into a frenzy, while DC players and coaches could do nothing but stand there in shock. Now, I won't go into the details of Houston's playoff results because that will be for another history episode, maybe even the next episode. Wink. So make sure to listen in and find out how this crazy first Houston Dynamo season ends. Ching's goal would end up taking home MLS's goal of the year. But more importantly, it would create yet another fantastic memory for the new MLS fans in Houston.
That man is something out of a video game from what
I
it
can't
sounds
believe
like.
I can't believe how quickly he made himself immortalized in Houston Dynamo history. Like this, he's got to just be a fan favorite forever, just from one season.
He is the first person I remember ever having a testimonial in MLS.
When I was researching this, there were some articles talking about some of the moments, like his top 10 moments leading up to his testimonial game for Houston. And it popped up a lot because they were talking about this bicycle kick, but it was crazy. Like they had a great list of top 10 moments from him just as a Houston player. And then to the point that you just made, a testimonial game as well.
I think it does go back though to what happens if they don't move San Jose with this guy around. Because I mean, even before he got to Houston and did what he did, he had 25 goals and 56 appearances for San Jose over 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Like the dude was scoring at San Jose. He played at Seattle before that. This is before they were in MLS. 16 goals in 25 games. He was with LA. He had a goal in 8 games. Like the dude could play and people knew it. But I think he stands out most because of how quickly he got Houston into relevancy, right?
Yeah, and you know what's crazy either, and maybe it's just because we're spoiled by modern day MLS. He never really had a season where he just like blew up the scoring numbers. Like his most goals scored in a season was 13, and it wasn't even the season that we're talking about.
Right.
Which I mean, he doesn't have a ton of minutes, so he's pretty like efficient when he's out there. And I think again, it's modern day MLS spoiling us, where we see guys like Josef and Vela and Zlatan scoring 30 plus goals, and I'm sure that's going to be messy next year as well. So seeing 13 means it just feels like, wow, only 13 goals. But I think back in, you know, mid 2000s MLS, hitting double digit goals was, and doing it consistently was probably really strong from your striker.
Yeah. He is definitely something special, and it'll, we could do a whole, you know, Brian Ching history deep dive into just him. But we won't do that today. But we might do it at some point. That'd be a cool like spin-off of MLS history, is like history of player, where they came from, how they got to where they are. That could be fun.
It could be interesting.
Yeah, we still got about 400 more stories to go, so we'll get there later. But
And counting. There's
and
new
counting,
stories
because
every day.
oh man, I can't wait for the end of the season. I'm gonna go to MLS Reddit and be like, all right, guys, so for our book, what are some cool ones from this year? And it's just gonna be whoosh.
Oh,
Um,
forget about it. Leagues Cup itself has like 5 stories we can go into.
oh
There was
yeah.
year one of it.
So good. So good. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts, so you know when the next MLS history goes live and when our next episode goes live. We mentioned some of the things we're going to be doing at the beginning of the episode. So if any of that interests you, make sure you subscribe and tell a friend. Make sure you're following us on all forms of social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We are all about interaction, as long as it's based in logic and reality. That's a good way to put that. I've already used that good old mute button on a couple people who yeah, they just there to be there, you know. But make sure you're following us there if you want to come interact with us. We hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players Podcast. See ya.